recently faced my own worst nightmare. The HOA president, Karen Goodson, filed a lawsuit to force me into her HOA, even though my land isn't even part of it. Her excuse: she waved a 30-year-old expansion map and said, I technically belonged to them. Funny thing is, the only thing that got destroyed that day was her entire case, in under 3 minutes. Let me start from the beginning. The first time I ever laid eyes on Karen Goodson, she was marching up my driveway like she was invading Poland. My wife Amy and I had just finished the last board on our porch railing. We were sitting in 2 old rocking chairs, mugs of coffee in hand, watching the morning mist roll off the pines. This was it. This was the dream. 2 years of saving every dime, 1 year of busting my hump on weekends and evenings, turning a patch of forgotten woods into our own little slice of heaven. No neighbors breathing down our necks. No traffic. Just the sound of wind and birds. So I thought. Karen wore a pastel pink pantsuit that screamed, I have an opinion about your life choices. Her hair was sprayed into a helmet that looked like it could deflect small arms fire. In her hand was a freshly stamped lawsuit packet marked HOA legal notice. Good morning, she said, like it was an accusation. She stopped at the bottom of our new porch steps, her eyes scanning everything with judgment. Her gaze lingered on the fire pit I'd built myself. Then it swept over the thick forest that surrounded our cabin. I'm Karen Goodson, president of the High Pines Homeowners Association, she declared, the word president rolling off her tongue like royalty. I took a slow sip of coffee. Years of running construction crews taught me that direct is always best. That's nice, I said. This is my property. What can I do for you? She gave a tight, unpleasant smile. Well, that's just it. It's your property, yes, but it's also within High Pines Community Charter, she said, tapping her clipboard, which means it's subject to our covenants and bylaws. I've already noted 2 violations this morning. I glanced at Amy. Her face was calm, but I could see the storm in her eyes. Amy is the clever one. I'm the doer. Right now, what I wanted to do was tell Karen exactly where she could file her clipboard, but I held my tongue. Violations? I asked flatly. We've been here less than a month. The rules don't take holidays, she said with a smirk. First, your fire pit. It's unapproved. All fire features must be gas-powered and enclosed in board-approved decorative housing. She said decorative housing like it was the most sacred phrase in the English language. Second, she continued, waving toward the forest. Your property must maintain a park-like appearance. This is wild. You need to clear at least 40% of these trees for proper sight lines. I actually laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes just before things get loud. You want me to cut down my trees? I said the trees that were here 100 years before your HOA existed. Amy touched my arm gently. Ma'am, she said to Karen, I think there's been a mistake. We did a thorough title search before we bought this land. There are no covenants, no HOA ties whatsoever. We were very specific about that. Karen's eyes narrowed. Mistakes were made, dear, but not by the association. Probably an oversight. By your realtor. It happens. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. She pulled a pink slip from her clipboard. You have 30 days to correct these violations. After that, daily fines will begin to accrue. I didn't take the paper. I stood up. I'm not a huge guy, but I'm solid and when I want to be. I can be intimidating. I'm going to say this once, I said, stepping forward. Get off my land. You are not welcome here. Your fake rules are not welcome here. And if you ever come back, I'll have you cited for trespassing. Karen didn't flinch. She just smirked and placed the pink slip on the bottom step. The association has rights, she said. You can huff and puff, but you will comply. Everyone does, eventually. And with that, she goose-stepped back down our driveway. Amy and I stood there in silence. Then we burned the violation notice in our very much unapproved fire pit. The first morning felt like something out of a postcard. The sun was just beginning to cut through the mist, hanging over the pines, and the smell of fresh-cut cedar still lingered on the porch boards. Amy and I were parked in our old rocking chairs, sipping coffee like we were retired royalty. After 2 years of saving and 1 year of dragging lumber through mud and snow, we'd finally done it. Our cabin, our land, no neighbors, no noise, just birdsong and the occasional squirrel with an attitude problem. We hadn't even unpacked the kitchen knives, but the peace already felt sacred. That kind of silence, the kind that hums instead of buzzes, is rare, and we were soaking in every second of it. That's when she appeared. I heard gravel crunch and turned my head, expecting maybe a delivery guy or a curious hiker. Nope, it was a pastel pink nightmare, power walking up our driveway like she had a search warrant and a vendetta. High heels, clipboard, hair so shellacked it could survive a tornado. You already know who it was. "Good morning," she called out, but she said it like I'd just run over her cat. I stood slowly, coffee still in hand. "Morning," I said, careful not to sound too friendly. Amy gave me a look, the look that means play nice, until we know what she wants. The woman stopped at the base of the porch, eyes scanning everything like she was doing a military inspection. Her nose twitched at the sight of our fire pit. Her eyes narrowed at the moss on our trees. "I'm Karen Goodson," she announced, as if that should mean something to us. "President of the High Pines Homeowners Association." I blinked. "Okay." Karen smiled, the kind of smile that comes with a but. "Well, I'm here because your property technically falls within the community perimeter, which means you're subject to our HOA's bylaws and design standards." I almost dropped my mug. Amy, to her credit, didn't even flinch. "We're not part of any HOA," Amy said calmly. "This land was sold privately. We had a full title search done before closing." Karen's smile sharpened. "There must have been an oversight, but that doesn't change the facts. According to the 1996 Community Expansion Map, your lot falls within our jurisdiction. I've already noted 2 code violations." I stepped forward. "I'm sorry, what now?" She lifted her clipboard like it was a holy relic. "Violation 1, unapproved fire pit. HOA regulations require gas-powered fire features enclosed in board-approved decorative housing." She actually said decorative housing like it was a federal law. "Violation 2, your landscape is non-compliant. Properties must maintain a park-like appearance. This," she gestured toward our untouched forest, "is ... wild." I looked at Amy. She looked at me. I could feel the heat rising in both of us, and it wasn't from the coffee. "Karen," I said slowly, "we bought this land specifically because it wasn't part of an HOA. We don't want to be part of one. And frankly, your map isn't our problem." She set the clipboard down on the porch step with all the grace of someone leaving a parking ticket. "You have 30 days to comply before daily fines begin," she said sweetly. Then she turned on her heel and strutted back down the drive like she'd dropped a mic. We stood there in silence. Then Amy bent down, picked up the violation slip, and walked it over to the fire pit. Without a word, she dropped it into the flames. The paper curled, blackened, and vanished in a puff of smoke. Amy looked at me, dead serious. "She picked the wrong couple." I nodded. "Oh yeah, this is war." The morning we finally felt like we'd made it. We were sitting on our new porch, coffee in hand, legs kicked out like kings, surveying their quiet little kingdom. Amy had just finished sealing the last plank on the railing cedar, smooth as silk, not a splinter in sight. The birds were going about their business. A cool breeze rustled the trees. The smell of pine sap and damp earth filled the air. It was perfect. We had worked ourselves into the ground to get here. 2 years of living like monks, skipping vacations, working weekends. Then we spent another year, nights, holidays, every spare second, cutting, clearing, building, just the two of us. No contractors, no neighbors. And now, for the first time, we were sitting still. Then, like a horror movie villain in sensible shoes, she arrived. I didn't hear her car, I didn't hear the gate, but I heard the crunch of gravel, deliberate, self-imposed. Looked up, there she was. A woman in a pink pastel pantsuit, the kind rich aunts wear to brunch in those towns that have more country clubs than gas stations. Her hair was teased and sprayed into a helmet strong enough to take a punch. Her lipstick was sharp, her eyes sharper, and in her hands was a clipboard, like it was a judge's gavel. She didn't wave, she didn't smile, she didn't look curious or confused. She looked like she already knew she hated us. "Good morning," she called out, like it was an insult. Amy and I glanced at each other. The peace was already shattered. "Morning," I said, not bothering to stand. I figured if she had actual business, she could say it from there. She stopped at the foot of our porch steps, glanced at the fire pit, the forest behind us, the siding on the house, and then, very pointedly, at our rocking chairs as if furniture. Could offend her? "I'm Karen Goodson," she announced, like she expected applause. "President of the High Pines Homeowners Association." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay." Her lips pressed together in a smile that had no joy in it. "I'm here today because your property has come to our attention. According to the 1996 High Pines Expansion Charter, your parcel falls within the community boundary, which places it under the authority of the HOA. Amy leaned forward, calmly setting her coffee down. "We did a full title search. Our property is not, let me under any HOA jurisdiction." Karen's expression didn't flicker. "That would be a common oversight, unfortunately. Many title agents don't check the annexation records thoroughly. But regardless, we've logged multiple violations that need to be addressed within the next 30 days. I squinted. "Violations?" "Yes," she said, tapping her clipboard with a manicured finger. "First, your fire pit. All outdoor fire features must be gas-powered, enclosed, and board-approved for design compatibility. Yours is non-compliant." I looked at the fire pit. It was a circle of hand-picked river rocks, with firewood stacked neatly beside it. The damn thing could have been in a Pinterest post. She wasn't finished. "Second, your landscape. The HOA requires all properties to maintain a clean, park-like appearance. This," she waved her hand at our surrounding forest, "is wild. It does not meet visual harmony standards." Amy blinked. "You're telling us the forest is too, foresty." Karen's eyes narrowed. "A minimum of 40% of tree cover must be cleared to ensure uniform visibility and aesthetic balance." I nearly choked on my coffee. "So, you want us to chop down half our trees to match your landscaping preferences?" "It's not a preference," she said flatly. "It's policy." At this point, I stood up, slowly. I'm not a huge guy, but I know how to make myself look taller when I'm angry. "We bought this land precisely because it wasn't under an HOA. It's private, rural, untouched. No dues, no board meetings, no color-coded mulch requirements." Karen didn't flinch. "Mistakes were made, but the expansion map is legally binding. As of 1996, this lot falls within our operational charter. I've already filed the violation notices. Here." She set a paper down on the lowest step like she was laying a trap for a mouse. "If you do not comply within 30 days, she continued, "you'll begin accruing daily fines. Further refusal will result in legal action." I didn't answer. I just stared at her, long and hard. She didn't blink. Then she turned and walked away, calm and smug. Like a woman who'd just mailed your wedding RSVP with a big red declined. Across it, we didn't say a word until the crunch of gravel disappeared completely. Amy picked up the violation slip, turned it over, studied the print like it might explode. Then she walked it straight to the fire pit, struck a match, and let it catch flame. The paper curled and blackened, the pink turning to angry black ash in seconds. She picked the wrong couple, Amy said. I nodded. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. But that wasn't the whole story. Because we thought that was the end of it. Some nut with a clipboard throwing around empty threats. An annoying morning, sure, but nothing more. We were wrong. The next morning we found an envelope taped to our mailbox. It wasn't another violation. It was an official letter, sealed, notarized, certified from a local law firm. Karen had filed a civil complaint. She wasn't just annoying. She was serious, and it was about to get legal. But in that moment, back on the porch, fire pit crackling, coffee still warm, we didn't know any of that yet. We just knew that some pink-suited paper queen had stepped on the wrong patch of dirt. And we were going to remind her what happens when you try to bring HOA nonsense to the wilderness. Court day came faster than we expected. 3 days of prep flew by in a blur of coffee, photocopies, and emotional whiplash. Amy hadn't slept more than 4 hours straight since we got the complaint, and I hadn't touched a tool in days, which, if you know me, says a lot. We showed up to the courthouse early, dressed like respectable, tax-paying citizens. Amy wore that deep blue sweater that makes her look both sweet and like she might slap you with facts. I wore a plain gray button-down because I figured that said, I'm not a threat, but I will win. Karen, on the other hand, made an entrance like she was walking into a country club board meeting. She was flanked by 2 suited men who looked like they'd sell their own grandmothers for a billable hour, and 3 other HOA board members who looked like they'd all had the same Karen assembly line haircut. She strutted through the hallway like she'd already won. We sat quietly, waiting for the judge to enter. I watched Karen arrange her stack of binders like she was about to teach a seminar called How to Ruin Your Neighbor's Life 101. Her lawyer, some guy named Braden, who looked like he'd just graduated from the Academy of Smirks, stood confidently with a stack of folders, and what I assume was a very inflated sense of self-worth. Judge Stone entered the courtroom like a force of nature. Gray hair, glasses, robe sharp enough to cut glass. She didn't smile, didn't nod. She just looked down at the docket and said, "Let's begin." Karen's lawyer started strong, I'll give him that. He made it sound like Amy and I had moved into the neighborhood with flamethrowers and bad attitudes. He talked about community, cohesion, aesthetic disruptions, and property value destabilization. He painted Karen as the humble servant of the people, bravely standing up for law and order, while 2 rogue homeowners destroyed the sanctity of High Pines. Karen, never one to skip drama, took the stand and cried, real tears, like Oscar-worthy. She talked about how unsafe she felt, how she was just trying to uphold standards, how she feared for the future of the community. She even tossed in a line about toxic masculinity and aggressive stares, which I guess was directed at me, though I'd barely spoken a word to her. I just blink hard, I guess. She finished by slapping down the star of her show, the 1996 expansion map that supposedly brought our property under HOA jurisdiction. It looked official enough, shiny cover, color-coded borders, highlighted areas. Her name was the only one signed on it, but she presented it like Moses holding the tablets. Her lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we're requesting a summary judgment. That's when our guy stood, Ben Whitaker, local attorney, unassuming, looked like a librarian. But when he walked up, it was like a light shift in the room, calm, cool, and carrying receipts. Your Honor, Ben said, we have evidence that not only refutes the plaintiff's claims, but suggests this entire case is based on deception. He called me to the stand first. I told the story, how we bought the land, how we checked for HOAs in the title search, how we spent months building everything ourselves. I kept it short, honest, and as calm as possible, even when I talked about Karen marching up our driveway like she was leading a pastel invasion. Then Amy took the stand. She's not dramatic, but she is thorough. She talked about the documents, the research, the map history. She didn't cry, didn't raise her voice, just facts, pure, unshakable facts. Then Ben brought out the binder. Not binders, just one. Ours. He opened to the notarized 1994 development map of High Pines. The actual map. 6 signatures. Notarized, filed with the county. It clearly showed the boundaries, and our land was very much outside them. There was no mention of any expansion. No amendments. No vote. Nothing. Karen's map. 1 signature. Hers. No board minutes. No record of it being filed. No notarization. When Ben placed both maps side by side on the courtroom projector, it was game over. But Ben wasn't done. "Your Honor," he said, inserting a flash drive into the court's display screen, "I'd also like to present a brief visual timeline." I smiled. Amy had made the slides herself. She'd worked on them at 3 a.m. 2 nights ago, muttering things like, "Oh, you want receipts? I'll give you receipts." Slide 1. A map of recent property acquisitions around High Pines, all purchased under an LLC linked to Karen Goodson. Slide 2. Listings from Karen's own real estate agency, showing those properties as part of High Pines HOA. Slide 3. Financial records and emails. Oh yes. Public records request came through Clutch, showing she was flipping properties using fake HOA affiliation to increase value. Slide 4. Screenshots of next-door posts and complaints from neighbors about unwelcome annexation, surprise inspections, and unapproved fines. Slide 5. Footage from our own security camera, showing Karen's hired compliance officers walking onto our property at night, measuring tree height. And this part got audible gasps, dumping something into our water tank. We later learned it was sugar. The room went dead silent. Karen's smile vanished. Her lawyer started flipping through pages, like maybe he could find an excuse at the bottom of one. One of the HOA board members actually turned and glared at her, like he'd just learned she'd sold his dog. Judge Stone looked up, her face unreadable. She asked Karen, "Is this your signature on this 1996 document?" Karen mumbled, "Yes." "And was this ever filed with the county?" Karen didn't answer. "Was a board vote ever conducted to approve this expansion?" Karen looked at her lawyer. He looked at the floor. That's when the judge closed the folder, took off her glasses, and said, "I've seen enough." She declared the case dismissed with prejudice, which means Karen couldn't drag us into court again over the same nonsense. She also ruled that Karen, personally, would pay our legal fees and no hiding behind the HOA, and then, in a tone that could freeze lava, she announced that she was referring Karen for criminal investigation, citing potential fraud, harassment, and forgery. The courtroom didn't erupt, but you could feel the air crackle. Even the court reporter raised her eyebrows. Karen looked like she was trying to disappear inside her own blazer. Her lawyer started packing up without looking at anyone. The HOA board members walked out before she did. Amy and I just sat there, stunned. Not because we didn't expect to win, but because we didn't expect the truth to land that hard, that fast. We stepped outside into the sunlight. I don't know if it was just the adrenaline wearing off or what, but that moment felt even better than the day we finished the porch. Amy looked at me, grinning for the first time in days. 3 minutes, she said. That's all it took. I nodded. 3 minutes, and a PowerPoint. Who says revenge isn't a team sport? And that's how we shut her down legally, publicly, and with just enough flair to make it memorable. You'd think, after crushing someone in court, you'd walk out with a swagger, chest out, movie slow-mo, victory music playing in your head. We didn't. We walked out of that courthouse in stunned silence, like we'd just watched a tornado suck up our enemy's house and politely skip ours. Karen had come at us with everything: lawyers, binders, fake maps, emotional monologues. And in 3 minutes, it all collapsed. She didn't just lose, she imploded, and the blast radius was just getting started. By the time we got back home that afternoon, our inbox was already filling up. First, from curious neighbors who'd heard things. Then from HOA board members we hadn't even met. Then from local realtors. Then a reporter. Apparently, courtroom drama moves fast in small towns, especially when it involves Karen Goodson. Amy was still in her courthouse clothes when the first knock came. It was Gail from 3 doors down. We barely knew her, just a wave here and there. She was holding a peach cobbler and had a look in her eyes like she'd just been rescued from a hostage situation. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, setting the dish on our porch table like a peace offering. "We've all been dealing with her for years, but nobody thought to fight back. Not like that." She leaned in, lowered her voice. "We didn't even know we could." Apparently, Karen had built an empire out of intimidation. People paid her bogus fines just to avoid confrontation. She'd created her own little suburban dictatorship, equal parts clipboard and cult leader. One guy said she'll find him for putting up a non-neutral mailbox. Another for having an unauthorized flag on Memorial Day. She threatened liens, sent nasty letters, inspected properties with a ruler and a measuring tape like she was prepping them for prison. She was the HOA, not a part of it. But once the court dismissed her case with prejudice, the walls started cracking. The next morning, Karen's photo was on the local news website, right under the headline, "HOA President Loses Court Battle." Under criminal investigation for fraud. Under that, Goodson accused of forging documents, annexing properties without consent. Amy read the whole article aloud, like it was poetry. Every sentence felt like a slow clap. Karen's license was under review by the state real estate board within 48 hours. Clients dropped her. Listings vanished. Her company website went dark. It was like someone hit the unpublish button on her life. But the real action was happening right inside High Pines. We weren't invited to the emergency HOA meeting that weekend, but several neighbors gave us the play-by-play. Apparently, it was held in the clubhouse, the same one Karen once banned kids from using because their footsteps were disruptive. Roughly 30 homeowners showed up. Most of them were older folks who'd lived under Karen's thumb so long they forgot they had a spine. But that night, something shifted. A few stood up and spoke. Then more. Then all at once. People shared stories. One woman said Karen fined her for drying laundry on her back deck. A man said he had to repaint his front door 3 times because it wasn't sunset beige. Someone brought up the time Karen removed a garden gnome because it violated visual tranquility. It was absurd. And everyone had a story. By the time the vote to remove her came up, it wasn't even close. Unanimous. Karen wasn't there to defend herself. Maybe she was busy shredding documents. Maybe she was home Googling, "Can I get sued for lying about HOA maps?" We didn't know. Didn't care. All we knew was that the tyrant had fallen. It wasn't long before we started getting thank you notes. Not the polite kind, the passionate kind, handwritten, from people who'd been too scared to speak up for years. One woman left a letter on our doorstep that said, "You didn't just save your land. You saved all of us. We didn't ask for that role. We just wanted to be left alone. We wanted our trees, our coffee, our damn fire pit. We didn't want to lead a rebellion." But sometimes, that's how change happens. You push back against one bully and people remember how to stand later that week. We passed Karen in town. It was at the grocery store. She was in the frozen foods aisle, clutching a bag of peas, eyes fixed on the floor. She saw us. Of course she saw us. She didn't say a word. No more pastel suit. No more clipboard. Just a cardigan and the silence so loud it echoed. Amy leaned in and whispered, "Didn't take 3 minutes to melt her whole empire, huh?" I smiled. "Less time than it takes to boil those peas." Karen walked away, and that was the last time we saw her. The new HOA president came by our place the following week. A nice guy named Tom, retired firefighter. wore a baseball cap, and brought a pie from his wife. "Don't worry," he said. "We're not touching your land. You're not in the HOA. Never were. Never will be." He said it like it was a solemn promise. We invited him for coffee on the porch. He laughed when he saw the fire pit. "That's a hell of a violation," he said. "Yeah," I grinned. "So's breathing, apparently." We all laughed, and for the first time in months, it felt like things were finally normal, like the nightmare had ended, like peace wasn't a fragile thing you had to protect with receipts and legal filings. It was just ... here, ours again. And every time we sit on that porch now, every time we light that very much still wood-burning fire pit, we remember the lesson Karen accidentally taught us. Sometimes you don't need to fight with fists, or threats, or fear. Sometimes all it takes is the truth, a good lawyer, and a well-timed PowerPoint, and maybe a little bit of fire. It's funny how peace feels louder after a storm. I used to think quiet was just the absence of noise. But now, after all of it, Karen, the lawsuit, the clipboard threats, the courtroom drama, that first morning back on the porch sounded like music. The birds were louder, the wind more full, even the coffee tasted bolder, like it knew we'd earned it. Amy was wrapped in a blanket, bare feet on the railing, steam curling up from her mug like a victory flag. Her hair was messy in that I woke up 10 minutes ago, but still looked better than you weigh. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her smile said everything. We were back. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if you want to go that far. The weight was gone. The low-grade anxiety that had been humming in the background like a broken fridge finally stopped buzzing, and there it was, peace. Actual peace. Just sitting there waiting for us. The fire pit crackled beside us, flames dancing on logs that absolutely were not gas-powered or enclosed in decorative housing. It felt rebellious just having it there. A tiny middle finger to bureaucracy, a reminder that sometimes the best kind of victory is doing exactly what they told you not to do. For the first time since we moved in, I let myself just watch the trees. Really watch them, their slow, swaying dance in the wind, the way sunlight filtered through the leaves and patches, painting everything gold. No noise, no threats, no HOA rep measuring branch lengths like she was assessing runway models for a topiary fashion show. Just trees, glorious, unapologetic, untrimmed trees. We didn't talk much that day. We didn't need to. That kind of silence doesn't need filling. It holds you, like warm water. Later, I walked the property line just for the hell of it. Nothing had changed, but everything felt different, like the land itself had exhaled. The spot where Karen once stood, claiming our fire pit disrupted visual harmony, now felt like hallowed ground. I half considered putting up a plaque. Here stood Karen. Briefly, Amy joined me around sunset. We stood at the edge of the woods, watching the last light slip through the treetops. She leaned into me. I didn't think it would ever feel normal again, she said softly. I kissed the top of her head. It's better than normal. It's ours. And that was the real win, not the courtroom victory or the public humiliation of Karen, though that was delicious. The real win was this: getting back what was ours, without compromise, without apology. The next few weeks passed like a deep breath. Neighbors we'd never spoken to started dropping by, not to gossip, but to thank us. It was weird at first. We weren't used to being local legends. I half expected someone to show up with torches and pitchforks instead of banana bread. One guide in from lot 22 showed up with 2 6-packs and said, "I heard you beat the clipboard queen. I've got questions." And beer. We sat out back for hours, swapping stories. Turns out Karen had fined him for leaving his garage door open longer than 5 minutes. Another woman, Ruth, said Karen once tried to regulate the color of her bird feeders. Amy and I just kept blinking. We knew Karen was bad. We didn't know she was dictator of a mini nation bad. But the thing that surprised us most wasn't the horror stories, it was the sense of relief people felt. The lightness, like they'd been holding their breath for years, and finally let go. Turns out fear of confrontation had kept most of them quiet. But once someone stood up to her, and didn't get steamrolled, they realized they could stand, too. And somehow, weirdly, we became something like community glue, the accidental heroes. We got invited to more cookouts in that first month than we had in our entire adult lives. Amy joked we should put HOA Slayer on our mailbox. I didn't hate the idea, but even with all that attention, we kept coming back to the same thing. We never wanted a war. We just wanted to live in peace. To build something with our own hands, on our own land, without anyone telling us the trees were too wild, or the railing wasn't beige enough. It's strange how often freedom looks like quiet mornings and woods. Eventually, the final bits of Karen's empire crumbled. Her real estate license was officially revoked. Word spread that she tried to start another HOA 3 towns over, but nobody bit. Her reputation had gone viral in the worst possible way. Someone even turned her fake map into a meme. When you lie so hard you redraw geography. We didn't laugh at that one. Okay, we laughed a little. The new HOA board led by Tom, the retired firefighter who spoke in slow drawls and drank sweet tea by the gallon, sent us an official letter confirming that our property was never in the HOA and never would be. It ended with, "We apologize for any and all stress caused by the previous administration. Your land is your land." We framed it, put it in the hallway. A trophy, really. Eventually, things went back to normal. Or maybe they went forward to something better. We finished unpacking. Finished staining the back deck. Built a little bench swing between 2 trees. Grew herbs on the windowsill. Started planning a chicken coop. Amy even started writing again, sitting on the porch with her laptop and a mug of cinnamon tea, tapping away like the keyboard owed her rent. I swear the story she's working on has a villain that sounds suspiciously like a certain pink-blazered tyrant. And me, I fixed up the shed, started carving again. Nothing fancy, just little wooden critters, old-school whittling stuff. I gave one to the neighbor kid down the road, a fox with big ears and a toothy grin. He named it Karen Jr. His parents tried to make him change it. He refused. Can't say I blame him. I won't lie, some part of me kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Karen to file an appeal, for some surprise lawsuit to appear in our mailbox. But it never did. She was gone. Not just legally, completely, and all we had to do was stand our ground, speak the truth, and trust that the law would do what it was meant to do. Turns out, it didn't take an army. It didn't take months. It took 3 minutes. A folder of real documents, and a courtroom that actually listened. That still blows my mind. You grow up thinking the system's too big. That people like Karen always win because they have power or money or sheer audacity. But no, sometimes it just takes one push, one honest voice, one moment of not backing down, and then the whole tower falls. The last time Amy and I ever talked about it, really talked about it, was on the night of the first big rainstorm of fall. We were back in our chairs on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the clouds roll in. The wind picked up. Leaves skittered across the deck. The trees swayed like they were whispering secrets to each other. Amy sipped her tea and said, "You know, I think the forest knew she was wrong." I looked at her, the way it stood tall through all of it, the way nothing broke. Nothing bowed. It's like it waited for her to leave. I smiled. Maybe it was smarter than we were. "Definitely," she said. A flash of lightning cracked in the distance. Thunder followed, the kind that rattles deep in your chest. We stayed put, dry, safe, home. And in that moment, it really hit me, not just that we won, but that we were right. That standing your ground isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to not move, when to say, this is enough, when to refuse to let someone steal your peace, your time, your trees, your quiet. That's what Karen never understood. Control doesn't mean power. Fear isn't leadership. A clipboard isn't law. Truth is. And truth, backed up with facts and a little bit of fire, beats fake maps and pastel intimidation. Every time, so here we are, back where we started, but stronger, calmer, untouched in the ways that matter. The fire pit glows. The porch creaks softly beneath our chairs. The woods, still wild and wonderfully unregulated, stretch out before us like a living shield, and the world is quiet again. Amy leans back, exhales, and says, 3 minutes. I nod. That's all it took.